April 9, 1945. Flossenbürg concentration camp, Bavaria. Dawn breaks cold and gray. SS guards construct gallows in the courtyard. A 57-year-old man is ordered to strip completely naked. Major General Hans Oster stands exposed before his executioners. 1 month before war's end. Weeks before Allied liberation. But Hitler's vengeance cannot wait. Oster is hanged with thin hemp rope. The method designed to strangle slowly, sometimes taking 20 minutes. This is not execution. This is torture, humiliation, revenge. But who was Hans Oster? Why did Hitler order his brutal death just weeks before Germany's surrender? And what did this high-ranking German officer do that made him one of the Führer's most dangerous enemies? Before we go further, understand this. What you're about to hear is documented history. Trial records, Gestapo files, testimony from survivors like Fabian von Schlabrendorf, military intelligence archives. Hans Oster was tried and executed by SS drumhead court-martial on April 8, 1945, convicted in proceedings documented in Flossenbürg camp records. His resistance activities are verified through Abwehr files, Dutch military archives, and post-war historical research. If we don't share these stories, we forget that resistance to tyranny is possible, even from within. So hit subscribe. Make sure these voices stay loud. The story begins August 9, 1887. Dresden. Hans Paul Oster born into deeply religious Protestant family. His father was a pastor. But young Hans chose a different path. The military. Joined artillery in 1907. Served with honor during World War I. Rising to rank of captain within prestigious German general staff. The war ended in defeat. Like millions of Germans, Oster was devastated by harsh terms of Treaty of Versailles. Germany was stripped of territory, forced to pay crushing reparations. Military reduced to only 100,000 troops. In chaos of post-war years, Oster continued military career, eventually reaching rank of major by 1929. But personal scandals struck. In 1932, he was forced to resign after affair with fellow officer's wife. It seemed his military career was over. Then came Adolf Hitler. When Hitler seized power January 19, 1933, Oster actually supported the Nazi regime. At first, like many Germans, he believed Nazis would restore Germany's honor, rebuild the shattered nation. Within months, Oster joined the Abwehr, Germany's military intelligence service. But his support wouldn't last long. Music. The Nazis moved quickly to consolidate power, crushed political opposition, established concentration camps like Dachau to imprison enemies. Churches pressured to conform to Nazi beliefs. Books by Jewish, liberal, and Marxist authors burned in massive public displays. But the event that truly shattered Oster's faith came June 19, 1934, the night of the Long Knives. During this bloody purge, Hitler ordered SS to assassinate Ernst Röhm and other SA paramilitary leaders. But killings didn't stop there. Political opponents were also targeted, including former Chancellor General Kurt von Schleicher and Major General Ferdinand von Bredow. Von Bredow was Oster's friend. Former head of the Abwehr. These murders transformed Oster's disappointment into active resistance. Under leadership of Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, new Abwehr chief, Oster began building secret network, anti-Nazi officers and officials. His position gave him extraordinary access, classified information, fake documents, restricted communications. He used all of it to undermine Hitler. The Blomberg-Fritsch affair of 1938, in which Hitler forced two senior generals from power on fabricated charges, turned Oster's dislike into outright hatred. In 1938, Oster met Colonel General Ludwig Beck, Chief of General Staff, who openly opposed Hitler's plans to invade Czechoslovakia. When Beck resigned under pressure, he was replaced by Franz Halder, who secretly described Hitler as the incarnation of evil. Together, Oster, Beck, and Halder planned Germany's first military coup. The plan was bold: storm the Reich Chancellery, arrest or kill Hitler, restore German monarchy under Prince Wilhelm of Prussia. But conspiracy depended on Hitler making obvious move toward war. When British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain met with Hitler at Munich September 19, 1938, and agreed to breakup of Czechoslovakia, plot collapsed. Hitler was hailed as diplomatic genius. Conspirators lost their chance. However, what happened next would change everything. When World War II erupted September 1, 1939, opposing Hitler became even more dangerous, but Oster refused to back down. In one of most brazen acts of treason in military history, he began secretly passing German invasion plans to Dutch military attaché in Berlin, Major Gijsbertus Saas. According to Dutch military archives, Oster warned Netherlands more than 20 times about coming German attack. He even referred to Hitler as the pig who has departed for the front in the West. Tragically, the Dutch government didn't believe warnings. May 10, 1940. Germany invaded. Netherlands fell within 6 days. Despite risk, Oster continued resistance work. By 1941, after Hitler launched invasion of Soviet Union and systematic murder of European Jews began, Oster established contact with Colonel Henning von Trescow's resistance network in Army Group Center. In 1943, Oster's network supplied British-made bombs for 2 assassination attempts on Hitler. Both failed due to technical problems. First attempt, March 1943, involved smuggling explosives onto Hitler's personal aircraft. Disguised as bottle of cognac, bomb was set to go off mid-flight, but trigger failed in freezing cargo hold. Days later, another conspirator, Colonel Rudolf Christoph von Gersdorf, carried explosives into Berlin Museum, but where Hitler was scheduled to tour, captured Soviet weapons exhibition. Gersdorf planned to blow himself up alongside Hitler in suicide attack, but Hitler rushed through exhibit in minutes instead of planned 30, forcing Gersdorf to frantically disarm bombs in bathroom before they exploded. Yet even this would pale in comparison to what was coming. April 1943. Gestapo arrested Hans von Dohnanyi, one of Oster's closest partners in Abwehr. Dohnanyi had been caught smuggling Jews to Switzerland by disguising them as Abwehr agents. During his arrest, incriminating documents were found on his desk. According to Gestapo records, Dohnanyi whispered note to Oster, who tried to remove papers, but was immediately caught. Oster was placed under house arrest, dismissed from Abwehr. His dismissal was a devastating blow to resistance, leaving network in chaos at critical moment. For over a year, Oster remained under Gestapo surveillance, knowing his fate could be sealed at any moment. That moment came July 21, 1944, one day after failed assassination attempt. Music, July 20th, 1944. Wolf's Lair in East Prussia became site of one of history's most daring assassination attempts. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg placed briefcase bomb beneath conference table where Hitler was holding military meeting. Explosion tore through room, killing 4 people instantly, wounding more than 20 others. But Hitler survived. Heavy oak table leg shielded him. Only minor injuries: burned pants, damaged eardrum, temporary eye problems. Failed assassination triggered Operation Valkyrie, conspirators' emergency plan to overthrow Nazi government. For few precious hours, yet it seemed plan might actually work. Army units began moving across Germany, key Nazi officials targeted for arrest. But then news broke. Hitler had survived. Plot collapsed. Communication breakdowns. Hesitation among senior officers. Hitler's broadcast to nation doomed conspiracy. By midnight, conspirators were being rounded up. Many executed on spot. Others would face far worse fates. Hitler's fury knew no bounds. Ordered nationwide manhunt for anyone connected to plot. Launched reign of terror continuing until final days of war. thousands arrested, hundreds executed, and among them was a man who had been working against Nazi regime for nearly a decade. Hans Oster. By April 1945, war was nearly lost. Soviet forces closing in from east, American and British forces advancing from west. Berlin surrounded, concentration camps being liberated one by one. Yet even in these final desperate weeks, Hitler remained obsessed with punishing those who had dared oppose him. April 4th, 1945. Admiral Canaris' personal diaries discovered by SS. According to Flossenbürg camp records, diaries contained detailed records of resistance activities within Abwehr. Hitler flew into rage, ordered immediate execution of all conspirators named in documents, including Hans Oster. Executions weren't about justice or military necessity. They were acts of pure vengeance from dying regime. April 8, 1945. SS drumhead court-martial held at Flossenbürg concentration camp. Oster, along with Admiral Canaris, theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and several others, convicted in proceedings led by SS Judge Otto Thorbeck. Verdicts were already decided. All sentenced to death. And what makes this particularly disturbing is these men knew war was already over. Germany would surrender in less than a month. Allied forces were miles away. Liberation was coming. But Hitler's thirst for revenge wouldn't be stopped. Cold gray dawn of April 9th, 1945. Just 1 month before war's end. Gallows hastily built in courtyard of Flossenbürg. Hans Oster, now 57 years old, ordered to strip completely naked, led to scaffold in front of SS guards and other prisoners, exposed and humiliated. By Hitler's explicit orders, Oster was hanged with thin hemp rope, method designed not just to kill, but to humiliate and terrorize. In some documented cases, this method caused condemned to strangle slowly over as long as 20 minutes. Oster was forced to endure this final humiliation alongside men he'd worked with for years. Admiral Canaris, our head of Abwehr, who had shielded Oster's resistance activities for nearly a decade, executed same morning. So was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Lutheran pastor and theologian who had courageously spoken out against Nazi persecution of Jews. These men, who had risked everything to stop Hitler's regime, were murdered just weeks before Allied forces would liberate camp and Germany would surrender. Fabian von Schlabrendorf, one of few senior resistance members to survive the war, later described Oster in his memoir, The Secret War Against Hitler, published 1946, as a man such as God meant men to be, lucid and serene of mind, steady in danger. After his death, according to post-war records, Oster's body was buried in Nordfriedhof Cemetery in Dresden. Now his wife Gertrude and 3 children survived the war despite shame Nazi regime tried to attach to family name. Hans Oster's story is one of extraordinary moral courage in face of absolute evil. He risked his life, his family, his honor to oppose regime that had plunged world into war and genocide. While his efforts ultimately failed to stop Hitler, Oster's legacy lives on as proof of power of individual conscience, refusal to submit to tyranny. The July 20th plotters, including Oster, have been recognized after death as heroes of German resistance. Today, the German Resistance Memorial Center in Berlin includes extensive documentation of Oster's activities. Streets in Germany bear his name. Historical consensus recognizes him not as traitor, but as patriot who understood that true loyalty to one's country sometimes means opposing its government. His willingness to commit what Nazis called treason was actually highest form of moral courage, choosing conscience over comfort, principle over personal safety, human decency over blind obedience. This isn't ancient history. This happened 80 years ago. Some who knew Oster lived into 21st century, carried memories of his courage, his sacrifice, his refusal to remain silent. The lesson is clear. Resistance is possible even from within systems of absolute power. Individual conscience matters. Moral courage exists even in darkest hours. And those who stand against evil, even when they fail, leave legacies that endure long after tyrants fall. If this story moved you, make sure you subscribe right now. So drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts on moral courage under tyranny and the cost of resistance. Thanks for watching, and please share this video with anyone who values stories of individuals who stood against evil. These voices of resistance must never be forgotten. These voices must stay loud.